The bartender asked me if the guy across the bar could buy me a drink. And Florian was standing over there and came over and asked me if I would consider marrying him in Austria. And of course I said yes.
Welcome to One Day in Vienna. Our guest today, Paul Hallam.
Name Paul Hallam. Geburtsland USA. Ankunft in Wien 2011. Familienstand. Verheiratet. Beruf Immobilienverwalter.
I'm your host, Lauren Löw, and welcome to this podcast where we're going to be uncovering those memorable anecdotes about this magical city that, let's face it, we all love and hate in moments. The expats featured on this show will be enlightening us as to how they navigated becoming a local in Vienna, often with a splattering of hilarious culture clashes to boot. Hello, I'm Lauren Löw, and welcome to One Day in Vienna. Today, I'm in the stunning home of Paul Hallam and his partner, Florian. Hi, Paul.
Hi.
I have to ask you, what are you doing in Vienna?
Vienna was the logical choice after 2011, when Florian flew over to America on Valentine's Day and surprised me without telling me. He arranged it with my next-door neighbor. He hates to fly, and it was a particularly bad flight because the weather was terrible. But I met my neighbor Beth for a glass of wine on Valentine's Day for the Lonely Hearts Club. And in the middle of this glass of Chardonnay, right before we decided to call it a night and go home to our neighborhood, the bartender asked me if the guy across the bar could buy me a drink. And Florian was standing over there and came over and asked me if I would consider marrying him in Austria. And of course I said yes. And Florian stayed for a couple of weeks and we made a plan. And the plan was to look at life in Vienna and life in Washington, D.C. and make a list. Where would we have the better life? And aside from the fact that I had a very good job in D.C., there was absolutely no other reason to stay in Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. We went through cultural institutions. We went through the quality of the water, the climate, everything you can think of. Of course, crime played a lot into it. Washington is a wonderful city, but it is also a very exciting city crime-wise, and you have to sort of be on your toes all the time. And that was it. In May of that year, I decided that I would tell the company I worked for that by the end of the year, I would be finished with the development project I had been working on. And I think it was around December 9th or 10th. I was already on my way home to say goodbye to my parents and then hop on a plane and get over here for Christmas with Florian.
And I have to ask you then, you know, this podcast is all about one day in Vienna. Are we going to be listening to your first day in Vienna?
You're basically going to be listening to my first day as a full-time expat in Vienna.
Please let us hear this story. We are dying to know.
I have been coming to Vienna since 2008 and flew back and forth periodically for long weekends and a couple days here and there. But when I flew over for Christmas 2011, that was to stay. And I do remember that trip because I had shipped over all of my clothes and I had shipped over actually weird things that it's very hard to find here, like good cookware. This is very, very strange, but average household items in Austria cost a fortune if you want to buy good quality. And I arrived in Vienna, and Florian had driven from the countryside. And he came in with his brother and his brother's girlfriend. And it was a crystal clear day, of the little bit of sun that you have in December. We had it in Vienna that day. But, you know, it gets dark very quickly. So by the early afternoon, it was already sort of getting gray and cold and very, very seasonal. So it was very Christmas-like. So it was before Christmas. And I do remember distinctly that back then, Vienna was actually very low-key at Christmas. Yes, you had some punch stands here and there. But Vienna now has a very well-organized Christmas market scene. And they should have this because they do it so well. I don't know any city on earth that does the Christmas market better than Vienna. Yes, there are the tourist markets where you can find sort of mass-produced things like the glass ornaments, but there are just as many equally local markets where you can go get the eccentric little independent shops, and we live by one. It's called Spittelberg.
Die Wiener Weihnachtsmärkte, die von der Bevölkerung auch Christkindlmärkte genannt werden, verzaubern in der Adventszeit die gesamte Stadt. Sie bieten traditionelles Kunsthandwerk, Punsch und regionale Spezialitäten wie Lebkuchen. Die Atmosphäre ist oft von den historischen Kulissen Wiens geprägt, zum Beispiel auf dem Rathausplatz oder am Spittelberg im 7. Bezirk, wo sich einer der stimmungsvollsten Weihnachtsmärkte Wiens befindet.
So back in 2011, the Christmas markets they didn't take me to them. We instead walked through Museums Quartier. And back in 2011, they just had, I think, 4 little Quonset huts set up. And inside this Quonset hut was a bartender, and you could sit on benches covered with these furs.
I remember
IKEA
that.
furs,
I remember, yes.
And it was so charming and so much fun. And it wasn't overcrowded. So I do distinctly remember drinking this blindingly strong Christmas punch at Museums Quarter with Florian, George, and Verena. And it was just a wonderful, crisp, cold, starry night when Vienna has that sort of magical feeling that I don't remember what day of the week it was, but it was definitely midweek. There were no shopping crowds. But my first stay in Vienna, cold and crisp, starlit, and just warm and fun.
Oh, thank you so much. And actually, that brings me on to my next question. I mean, I think I've decided that your apartment is my new favorite place in Vienna. But what's your favorite place in Vienna? Or are you on the same team as me?
I love to come home here.
Yeah.
Vienna has these amazing, we don't really have these in the US, these Altbau apartments, these old style. And you can always find a nice Altbau, a nice old style apartment. So we're very lucky. And being in real estate, I find the Altbau construction fascinating because this would have been called the bel étage, the beautiful floor.
Yeah.
And
it really is.
and we have we have the plaster ceilings and the wooden ceilings, and it's fascinating.
It's truly a very, very stunning home. And apart from your apartment, actually, because I'm very curious, do you have a spot in the city which you particularly love or adore?
Yeah, I have to say we have 3 dogs. So we walk a lot, and it's probably very healthy. But the last walk of the evening, to me, is always the most special because, Vienna doesn't roll up the sidewalks at 6 o'clock anymore. Maybe now it's more like 7 or 8. So to walk around from 10 to 11:30 at night, it's very peaceful.
Yeah.
You can walk through Spittelberg, and then we can walk down to the Museums Quarter. And at that time of the night, there's nobody there. So you can walk through this sort of vast courtyard between the museums.
So it sounds like you're a 7th district boy.
We're devoted to the 7th district. Mm-hmm. It's changing so quickly, and it reminds us so much of the Austrians all laugh when I say it reminds me of New York. But it really is very much like a small neighborhood in the Village or Chelsea. It's extremely diverse. There's people from all over the world here, mixed in with the die-hard Viennese locals. There's also what I find very funny, and I don't know if anybody else has mentioned it on these podcasts, but the Wiener Grant, which means the Vienna grouchiness.
Der Wiener Grant ist eine Konstante des Wiener Seelenlebens. Er ist ein Ausdruck für schlechte Laune, die einer diffusen Unzufriedenheit entstammt und äußert sich in einem sarkastischen, mürrischen Umgangston. Diese legendäre Eigenart ist für Fremde oft schwer einzuordnen. Das Expat City Ranking kürte Wien aus diesem Grund schon mehrfach zur unfreundlichsten Stadt der Welt.
What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that are 14 years ago, I saw it everywhere. And it's disappeared.
It is. You're so
it's
right.
disappeared, and I almost miss it. I almost miss the incredibly rude cashiers and the somewhat, dismissive waiters. But it's gone. It's for the most part gone. And I find everything very charming and funny, and especially after Corona.
And I want to know, obviously, we've met Florian, and we know that your husband is a real Austrian. Do you have any favorite Austrian words that you've picked up along the way, or ones that you just adore?
That I can repeat?
Everything is available here. Everything's up for discussion.
The favorite German words. I don't know. Probably wahrscheinlich and vielleicht. Yeah, probably and maybe. Perhaps.
Do you say that a lot? Are you like wahrscheinlich?
A lot. Wahrscheinlich. Yeah.
Do you use the Viennese oder? Do you use an or at the end of your sentence yet?
Oder? Oder?
This is nice, oder?
They do in Florian's family, and I never understood it. These things that are called peppering words, I don't understand them at all. Doch, for example, I don't know what you use it for or when you use it. Yeah. I probably will never understand fully those peppering words.
But do you have what's your relationship with German? Is your family language English then at home?
Only here.
Yeah.
Only here. Yeah. In the office, it's German.
Okay.
Although, since I work with extremely well-educated people, nobody speaks German with me. They immediately switch to English. They speak German with each other, and I can sit there and say, yeah, no, I agree. No, yeah. But then they turn to me and they only speak English. And you would think that it's because the Viennese really hate to hear an English-speaking person speaking German, but that's not the case. Florian said that when we go to the countryside, I only speak German with his family, that they don't speak English. And I said, well, can you correct me on my vocabulary and my sentence construction? He says, no, it's very charming. And I said, no, it's not. I don't know what I'm saying. I mean, does it make any sense, or is it just a bunch of words strung together? And he goes, no, people can kind of understand it. So
that's lovely.
And I can get around. The important thing is, if you're an expat in Vienna, you need to learn to get around the grocery store without speaking English. Because if you do speak English, the results will not be good. They appreciate it more if you speak a German or your type of German. And eventually, they get used to you. And when they see you in the store, they
take pity on you.
They take pity on you because they come to expect this kind of immigrant German.
And I want to ask you just finally, Paul, are you here to stay?
Yes. Yeah. I am really here to stay. I need, what do we decide? 8 more years in the pension system before I'm eligible for my Austrian pension. I have my US pension. I've already conquered that. But as you get older, especially, and I don't consider myself an older person, but I can tell you that if you come to Austria as an expat, your health will be something they want you to take care of. And this is the complete opposite of America. In America, they want you to avoid health issues at all costs because it just takes time away from the workday. But in Austria, they really want you to take care of yourself. So people do not eat at their desks. They do not work tremendously long hours or work on the weekends. In fact, by some employment contracts, you can't even send email to the people who work for you on the weekends. But it's nice. At first, you're a little stunned by it, but then you realize that you are forced to decompress, and you're forced to enjoy your weekends. And that's really important.
And that's classless.
Yeah.
That's also something that I find very interesting. That's real quality of life.
It is real quality of life. And I just have to add one more thing about quality of life. The water,
yes.
turning on I mean, I'm sure everybody mentioned this, but turning on the tap is basically drinking Evian. It's just astounding.
It is. It truly is. And I've just come back from a month in England. Oh, and that water just tastes absolutely fantastic. Paul, thank you so much for opening your home to us today, your beautiful home. Thank you for your lovely stories, and hope to see you again soon.
Me too.
Auf
Thanks very
Wiederhören.
much.
You love Vienna too and want to learn German? Innis Vienna will get you there. Vienna's best language school offers a variety of courses and trainings at different levels, at different times, and at different intensities. All information about Innis Vienna and today's guests can be found in the show notes. And there we also explain all other German words, terms, and Viennese areas from this episode. Thanks for listening. Auf Wiederhören.